I'm Tovim. Good afternoon. Thank you. Learning together should be a zechut and a refuah shlema for all those who need it. So, if you read through the Shabbat, pamphlets that they have in shul, you see over and over again, before this crisis was happening, all of the hotel Pessach programs. And one of the big things you always see is, of course, mahajin kosher and non-gebrochits and piniyots and everything like that. So having non-gebrochits Pesach has almost become a norm in what you see out there in the world. And it behooves us to try and figure out exactly what this minhag is, what's behind it, how applicable is it. Literally, the word gebrochits either means something like wet matzah or fallen apart matzah, because that's what happens when you put it into water. But I want to also introduce it from the following tshuva. So part of our different halachic works we have, besides the Rishonim and the Achronim and the classic, sort of quote that quote, a lot of based on question answer. So we call shoot. So this particular one, Kavna Ghetto. So Rav Oshri was appointed or became the chief rabbi of the Kavna Ghetto, and many people came to him with all different kinds of questions from every part of Jewish life having to do with living in the ghetto. And he hid them, and actually after he was liberated, dug them up and now published in a number of volumes, different questions and answers that were asked and given to him in the Kavna Ghetto. That's fascinating to see the question. Obviously everything that's going on in the ghettos and the Shoah, of course, the halacha, the law, but also it's a way of keeping the morale and the spirit. And as we alluded to yesterday, not being able to keep Pessach or to have to eat chametz or not to be able to eat matzah could ruin one's spirit, could ruin one's your morale. So this question was posed to him. In the winter of 1942, I just took two pieces for it. I don't want to read the whole thing. It's a little bit lengthy, but I thought it was powerful. I wanted to read just two or three parts of it together. In the winter of 1942, several months before Pesach, so many Jews in the Kavna Ghetto tried to figure out, okay, how are we going to eat matzah Pesach? What are we going to do? So I think most flour from which matzah is normally baked. So the ghetto prisoners ate, of course, whatever they could get their hands on. Black bread was rationed out and never enough to keep away the hunger. And of course, the Germans are guarding the ghetto, so no other food can come in. So towards this end, I organized, this is Rav Oshri, the head rabbi of the Kavna Ghetto, I organized a secret group of men who undertook to find ways of obtaining flour so they could bake matzah and at least fulfill the mitzvah of having a kizayit of matzah on Pesach night. So we organized an underground group. The one member was this fellow Moshe Goldkorn, Shem Yukom Damab, a Polish Jew who had escaped German murderers and found his way to Lithuania, then only to be put in the Kavna Ghetto. So 2 days before Pesach, again, I jumped a little bit in the tshuva. Basically, each time over the course of a month, to bring in a little flour, they could, together, because you can only get a little bit amount out of it. Got enough to actually be able to feed 100 people matzah on Pesach night. So now, 2 days before Pesach, Goldkorn was returning from labor in the evening. He was stopped by German police and searched. A small bag of flour was found on him. When the Germans realized that a Jew, despite their strict orders not to bring food into the ghetto, dared to violate their law, they beat him violently and viciously all along his entire body. But worst of it was they'd broken all of his teeth. Yet this Jew, throughout all this suffering, accepted it with love from his creator, knowing that he had made it possible for so many others to fulfill the precious mitzvah. Again, he's worried he might not be able to do the mitzvah because his teeth are broken. But at least he had the zechut to smuggle in flour for 100 people to eat matzah. But afterward, Goldkorn came to me with a very serious problem. As he spoke, he broke into tears. With my broken teeth, how can I fulfill the mitzvah of eating a kezayit, a matzah? Since I come from a Hasidic family, we'll see that the Hasidic spent on it in a few minutes, whose custom is never to eat matzah that is soaked, gebrachs. So gebrachs minhag is not to take matzah and put it in any liquid on Pesach. How can I now break that custom? Is there any way for me to fulfill the mitzvah of eating matzah? So that was a question that he posed to Rav Oshri, the Rav of the ghetto, basically wanting to know, push comes to shove, gebrachs, what do I do? I have this minhag, but yet my teeth are broken. We're in the middle of the ghetto. How am I going to be able to fulfill the mitzvah of matzah? So now we'll come to the answer at the end. Let's first see some background about this issue of gebrachs, and then we'll see how it plays into the minhag and how finally the Rav Oshri answered this question. So again, on a very, very simple level, yesterday we talked about in the process of making matzah, what happens if I add in fruit juice? Fine, put that behind us. Now we have in our hands 100% kosher matzah. No fruit juices, only water, flour, kosher, everything. Can I now take that matzah and put it in some kind of liquid? So now the Gemara in the Masechet Pesachim says, the Tanya, we quote the Breita, Yotzin b'rakik hasharui umevushal shelo nimuach. So yes, first of all, the Breita says that you can be yotzei the mitzvah of matzah. Again, the first night of Pesach, Yud Zal Nisan, literally a week from tonight, right? When is the Seder?
Yes, Wednesday night.
Wednesday night, a week from tonight, we'll all have a mitzvah, right? I got to get to the cleaning. So he says, yes, indeed, if your matzah was soaked or it was cooked, as long as it's shaloni muach. Muach is like it's lost its consistency completely. But at some point, you put something in hot water, it's not even matzah anymore. It looks like, I don't know, oatmeal or something. So as long as it doesn't get to that point, according to Rabbi Meir, if I soak my matzah or I cook my matzah in water, you can still fulfill your mitzvah of matzah at the Seder. So, if you're a fan of matzah brai, and Rabbi Meir was your Seder guest at the Seder, comes motzi matzah, you pull out some matzah brai, Rabbi Meir say, great, let's eat it up. Even though it's cooked again, no problem. It's not nimuach, matzah brai, I can still make out the pieces of matzah, no problem, I can fulfill my mitzvah of matzah at the Seder. Rabbi Yossi comes along and says, no. If it's soaked in water, fine, that's okay. But lo b'mevusha. If the moment you take matzah and put it with boiling water, you're not yotzei the mitzvah, even though, indeed, you still see the consistency. It's not fully, dissolved. Rabbi Yossi would say, if it's cooked with water, you're not allowed to fulfill your mitzvah.
So the question here, just to clarify, the question here has nothing to do with whether you're allowed to eat it or not. It's just whether you're allowed to be most of your chiyuv of eating matzah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. No one is saying it's asur. No one is saying it's chametz. No one is saying it's a problem. It's a debate. Can it be used to fulfill your mitzvah d'oraita? Okay. Excellent point. Very important. So while again, Rabbi Meir at your Seder would be happy to have matzah brai, Rabbi Yossi would have to pass and have a traditional, shmur matzah. So, what was the problem with having cooked matzah? Why is it problematic? And you have three answers that are found in the Rishon. And the first is Rashi. So Rashi says Yotzin. Again, this is the first opinion of Rabbi Meir. Chovat matzah, yidei chovat matzah, b'rakik hasharoi b'tavshil, lachar fiatom. Again, you baked your matzah, it's 100% kosher, now you're going to soak it. Even though, again, it'll fall apart, it's not going to look like matzah, it's still, according to Rabbi Meir, it's still considered to be halachically lechem, or bread, right? Lechem is a generic term. Matzah is a type of lechem, so it's still considered lechem. Kol zman shu kayam, shelo nimuach legamrei, still lechem, whether it is cooked or soaked, as long as, again, it hasn't fully lost its form. But according to Rabbi Yossi, the second Mishnah, the second opinion in the Breita, Avalo bevushal, the lav lechem karina bay. The problem with doing this, it's no longer considered to be lechem. Dava pishikvar ne'afar betanur, even though you baked it in an oven. Hoil v'chazaru bishlo, you once again cooked it because you put it in hot water. Bitlo mitorat lechem. It's no longer considered to be lechem, has to be baked, right? Bread has to be baked. You can't make matzah by boiling it, or you can't make bread by boiling it. And even though you baked it, if you cooked it after you baked it, it's not considered to be.
Would Rashi say that you make the mezonot on bagels?
Maybe, right? This has interesting nafkaminas to other things also. What brachas you make on things? Bishol b'Shabbat, right? If something is already baked, can it be cooked after it's baked? Right? So this is not only a matzah question, as other nafkaminas in different areas of halacha, but his basic premise is, according to Rabbi Yossi, once you boil it after it's baked, it's not considered to be bread anymore. And that's the problem with having cooked matzah at your Seder. Okay? So again, that's one of three reasons. We'll go to two other reasons. So Tosfot has a different reason, and this will bring us back to our discussion yesterday. So, Berim Mefaresh, Demari Beblito Ava Upsula Mishum Matzah Ashira. So his problem is, listen, as we noted yesterday, we have an obligation. We eat matzah. Lechem oni has to be poor man's bread, simply without flavor. Has to only be flour and water. Once you now take that, even though you've already cooked it, and it's fully halachic matzah, once you take that and now you add it to other things, it's not lechem oni anymore, and you can't fulfill your mitzvah on Pesach night. Okay, so the same problem we had with May Perot before it's baked is the same problem you have with your brachs after it's baked. But again, Gidon, to your point, which we'll come back again in just a moment, we're only right now talking about fulfilling your mitzvah. The third reason, the Rambam, the Rambam says, if you cook the matzah, you can't fulfill your mitzvah. Why? Because you no longer have the taste of bread. Yeah, all these reasons are similar. They're not like drastically different. But according to Rashi, it's not even lechem anymore. According to Tosfot, it's matzah ashira. It's not lechem oni, right? And according to the Rambam, you don't have the taste of bread. Yeah, maybe you could say that's the same thing that Rashi meant. There's a little bit of a nuanced difference. You don't have the taste of the bread in your mouth. But now, I come to you and I say, listen, do I have to spend an extra $1,000 to have products that are not gebrachs on Pesach? What do you say?
Don't losing. Well, once you add the losing money, or now we're talking about eating at all, right? We're not talking about specifically.
That's right. I'm not talking about the mitzvah.
Should you spend $1,000? I don't think so. Because so far the reason is none of these reasons why you can't do it. No one's like, oh yeah, because it's Asuri on Pesach. Everyone's like, oh, because you're just not going to fulfill your chiyuv. So seemingly it doesn't matter.
Perfect.
Yes.
Right now, gebrachs has no source of being a problematic thing to eat. In fact, when we look at the halacha, everything we said until now is only lechatchila, starting from the Beit Yosef, right? He quotes the Rif and the Rambam and the Rosh, right? Tedafka b'shaloni muach l'mitzvah min hamivchar amru lo bi'ikuva means not me'akev. If you take a look at the Shulchan Aruch, yotze adza b'matzah shruya vehu shaloni mucha aval im b'sheila ino yotze ba. Right? According to that, this is like how we would paskin Rabbi Yossi, the second opinion. If it's cooked, you don't fulfill your mitzvah. That's according to the Shulchan Aruch. The Mishnah Berurah comes along and says, Hainu diavad, right? Ulizakenu lechole shekashelo lechol matzah yevesha. Let's say you come to a zaken, elderly person, a chole, one who's ill, that can't eat wet matzah. Okay, think back to our question posed in the Kabbalah ghetto. He broke his teeth, right? He can't eat dry matzah. It's not going to work for him. He's got to suck it down. So mutter afilu lechatchila lishrod hamatzah b'mayim. You can even go ahead and lechatchila put your matzah in water. Ach tzarich lizaher shlo yisharuri mi'eit le'eit tikavush k'mevushal. I do want to distinguish. He's not necessarily saying cooking it. He's saying water, right? Not necessarily cooked water, not boiling it in water. And that's why he adds in, make sure that you don't leave the matzah in the water for 24-hour periods. Because we have another rule in halacha that another way of cooking something is by leaving something in water for a 24-hour period. So leaving all that aside, right? Pidi eved, or in the case of a zaken or a chola, one who's ill or one who is elderly, you could even take your matzah and put it into water, into liquid. So again, the question now really strongly becomes, how do we go from the Gemara and the Mishnah, and the Rishonim, discussing about whether you can fulfill your mitzvah on Seder night with matzah that has already been cooked perfectly, but yet baked perfectly, but yet cooked again. That's a question about can I fulfill my mitzvah. How do we jump from there to a minhag not to have gebrochits where I can't allow matzah to touch any liquid? And actually, by the way, people who do this have to be very careful what to say there, because during korech, you have your matzah and your maror together. Now, if you use maror that's lettuce, right, you might have washed it. And if there's water on the maror, and now that is coming into contact with your matzah, that's a problem of gebrochits. Your matzah can't touch any liquid. So again, the minhag, on the one hand, seems to be a strong minhag with a lot of ramifications to it. On the other hand, we have this a jump between what we see from the Gemara and the Rishonim and the Halacha to actually what is the minhag today. While we're only discussing can I fulfill my mitzvah, but yeah, we've jumped to now something might be prohibited to eat. So before we go to the next part, we'll actually look at the sources for the minhag. Questions, comments, thoughts? Nathaniel, it's nice to have you join us. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
So it has nothing to do with becoming cummings, right? It can't become cummings. Yeah.
No, right now we haven't seen anything, and you can't find. There's no hidden Gemara. It's not like I didn't show you another source. There's no source in the Gemara and the early Rishonim that discuss something in terms of not being allowed to eat. So the first, I don't want to say 100%. One of the earliest sources of this custom is found in the Ramban. The Ramban is one of the Balei Tosfot, one of the earlier Tosfot actually, comes from the same period as Rabbeinu Tam, a contemporary of Rabbeinu Tam, and he says the following. Hold on, I'm just going to move this here. Okay. So he says, Shematza afuya. So I'm going to suggest to you three sources for gebrochits, and three reasons, how this minhag became. Okay. So first he says, Shematza afuya, mota lavashla ulushrota, she'ena ba lidei chimut v'achar shenafet. That's like you said a moment ago, Larry. You can't become cummings. Can't. it's matzah. V'yesh she'enam rotzim lishrod hamatzah b'marak b'leil haseder. There are those who don't want to dip their matzah in the soup on Seder night. Okay, which is interesting that they were having soup on Seder night, right? Minhag avotenu biyadenu. Even when they got up to Shulchan Aruch, they weren't too full to have, soup and things like that. So there are people who said came time for the soup. And by the way, it's like Friday night. Sometimes you see people don't want to dip the challah in the soup. Again, because that similar concept, can you have bishul after afiyah? Okay, so why?
Well, it's different. It's different because on Yom Tov, it's mush. If you have actual bishul, it doesn't matter because it's mutter to cook on Yom Tov.
Good point. Exactly.
So Shabbos actually, it's interesting how I think people are much more careful on gebrochits than they are, let's say, Shabbos on Challah, even though twofold, Shabbos, you need to be much more careful because first of all, it's much more likely to happen, whether it's cholin or whether it's anything like that. And second of all, your onesh is a lot larger than what it would have been on Yom Tov.
Yep. But you don't see a hotel saying, "Oh, don't worry, we're not going to serve bread with the soup."
True.
Okay, this is fascinating. So what happened? So I remember my grandfather. I was at Bubby and Zadie's house, and they never dipped their matzah in the soup. Okay. Ukisvurim shehu mishum shlo tachmitz. I thought the reason why is because they don't want it to become chametz. And therefore, I got to keep the matzah away from liquid, especially hot liquid, because put it together, I might have a problem with chametz. Now, they didn't say that to me. I just saw them not dipping their matzah in the soup, and I assumed because of chametz. The inokain. Of course, that's not the reason. So, lo naguli maneam lishon hamatzah b'marak, ella hidei she'eta matzah b'fiyam kol laila harishon shel Pesach. They had a different reason. They did not want to, at any point, lessen or weaken the taste of matzah in their mouth. And therefore, every time they wanted a matzah, they wanted to make sure it was the real taste of matzah. And therefore, I'm not going to put it in my soup, because you put the matzah in the soup, again, then it tastes yummy and tastes chicken soup and get some carrots on it. But when the children and the grandchildren saw that custom, so they thought it's because they don't want to become chametz. And now all of a sudden, you have a minhag that's starting to spread, hey, you can't dip matzah in liquid. So taking a step back for a moment, based on the three reasons of why Rabbi Yossi did not allow to use nevushal matzah to fulfill the mitzvah, which reason does this line up most similar to?
The Rambam.
The Rambam, exactly, because according to the Rambam, he said, right, you can't. Why? Because it doesn't have the taste of the bread or of the matzah. And therefore, if I take that Rambam seriously, then I want to make sure that the whole night I only have tam matzah in my mouth. When it comes time for the soup, I'm not going to dip my matzah in because I would take away the tam of the matzah. So that is the Ra'avad, one of the earliest sources to suggest it, but perhaps the source that makes it the most popular or prevalent custom, especially for the Hasidim, comes from Reb Shir Zalman of Lady, right? The first Lubavitcher Rebbe. So we were in the 1800s now. Okay, we've jumped a long time from the Ravan all the way down to the first Lubavitcher Rebbe in the 1800s. So he says as follows: Bemet, Gam she'eno iser gamo uvara midina. Of course, there's no prohibition according to the law. Mikol makom hamachrir tal vo'ala bracha. Good thing to be extra stringent. V'eno minat bahamin leimor kihechi chumah v'lo tam. And this isn't part of those types of chumras that we say, oh, he's being stringent for no reason. Why is he doing it? Doesn't make any sense. Elatama rabba ika b'milta lizaher michashash isurei deoraita. So there's a good reason, because not dipping your matzah, in liquid can make sure you don't, God forbid, come to a Torah prohibition. What is he talking about? What's the Isur D'Oraita? He says the following: What's the problem? You bake the matzah, so maybe 90% of the matzah of the flour gets baked, but you might have little pockets of flour that weren't baked. Because they had a difficult dough, and they didn't do a good enough job kneading the dough, and wasn't thoroughly kneaded, and therefore there's some little pockets of flour left in your matzah even after you baked it. Now remember, we're before, machine matzah. We're doing this by hand for a lot of people. And, put in their difficult times and challenging times. You can imagine that, maybe there's some flour left over, isn't baked 100%. So he says, Umashlo, he skews that poskim, right? The majority of poskim don't even deal with this issue. Again, it's not very common, right? Not all communities might have this issue, because it's only, again, if you haven't fully kneaded the dough, then you might come into this issue. And therefore, he gets to the end. And therefore, you might have a mashu kemach be'in. Remember, with matzah, with chametz, right? Even a smallest amount is a problem, right? Issa d'oraita. There's no batal b'shishin. You can't say, oh, I've got 60 kosher, 1 non-kosher. It's okay. Even the smallest problem is an issa d'oraita. So therefore, even one kernel of flour that doesn't get baked. Shaplei lamala shmit chametz berarak shmafarim et hamatzah l'toch hamrak nahug b'Shabbat. And therefore, that one little grain of flour, when you dip it into your soup, like you do on Shabbat. Interesting here, back to your point before, Gidon. Sounds like, l'kinahug b'Shabbat, that the custom was to dip it, on Shabbat. So yish b'zeh chashash issa d'oraita kin kan tarova klal. You have a piece of flour that's on top of the matzah, gets dipped into the soup. You have an issa d'oraita, you have chametz on your hand. And therefore, now, the chances of that happening might still be very, very, very slim. And therefore, right? So Arizal had this general notion, if you can find a chumrah to do on Pesach, you should do it.
We went through a thing with Rav Sacher while we were still in yeshiva, and he said if someone really keeps through this and does every single chumrah on Pesach, they will starve to death. Like, actually, it is pretty impossible to eat anything throughout the entire Pesach if you keep to this.
And by the way, I know of people, not many, but they won't eat anything processed on Pesach. Nothing processed. They'll only eat pure, 100% natural, vegetables, meat, fruits, whatever it is. Because again, the Harizal had this notion. Now again, I don't know if he would say this in the time of pandemic, if there's, other, pikuach nefesh issues, but this was his general concept. And therefore, says the first about the Rebbe, Shir Zaman of Lady, you cannot dip matzah into soup or any liquid, hot liquid, or from there went to any liquid, because of this challenge that maybe there's some flour that indeed was cooked, not undercooked, and flour remained and therefore became chametz. Now he adds in 2 more interesting points. So on 8th day of Pesach, of course, this is only in Chutz La'aretz, Hamekel mishum simchat Yom Tov lo hifsid. So you can be lenient on the last day of Pesach, and you can have your gebrochits on Shmini Shel Pesach, which is fascinating. And by the way, you go to the world of Chabad and Hasidim, they do this, right? Part of the whole Seudat Mashiach, and the last day having a big Seudah, again, only the 8th day according to the Hasidim, you throw in there as much gebrochits as you can. And there are different theories as to why, specifically 8th day represents Geula and, redemption coming and things like that. A lot of Hasidic Torah behind that. On a more halachic level, you might want to also suggest, as some do, is you needed to be able to show that this is a chumrah and not a halacha, right? Because again, the basis for this, I don't want to say it's weak, but the basis for this is, purely minhag, and purely relevant to specific case where they might have had this problem. And therefore, some say, I want to show that I'm not, adding on extra halachot or extra mitzvot. Okay, on the 8th day, you know what? We're going to be makel and we're going to have the gebrochits. Nevertheless, the world of Lubavitch and the world of Hasidim, much based on what we're seeing right now, has a custom of gebrochits. And the last thing interesting he does, connecting again yesterday's topic to today's topic, umei perot pshita de'ina hachver klal b'chol ha'pesach. You now take egg matzah, right? Matzah that was made with mei perot. Of course, the Ashkenazic custom is not to eat it, but of course, it's allowed in all these different scenarios, a chola and a katan and a zaken. And of course, since that's sort of like a stringency in of itself, throw on another stringency of not doing gebrach, that you don't have to worry about. So if someone did not have the custom, right, a Sephardi or for whatever reason, someone did not have the minhag of mei perot and ate egg matzah on Pesach, they would not be subject to this chumrah of gebrach, because again, that's a little bit overload to have the chumrah of mei perot and the chumrah here all together. So pick one or the other. You don't have to do both. So that is the second reason behind this thing about the gebrach. Again, the Ravad said it was based on some mistake that people saw in the Seder, that they thought it was chametz to dip matzah in the soup, but really, indeed, they just wanted the tam matzah in their mouth. And now Rav Shimon is saying that of this small kashash, the flour is still added, which of course isn't really relevant today to shmor matzah that's baked in the machine, right? And even our handmade shmor matzah, many say it's much thinner than it was perhaps in this time. So, for those who do not keep gebrachs, even given this tshuva, there's a good reason to say that, you know what, he might not, probably is not applicable currently in machine matzah. Okay, one last reason is the following. So the Knesset HaGedolah is one of the Achronim. I don't know much about him. So quoting the Shari Tshuva, he says as follows. There was once a story. Mishum she'isha achat ta'ata. A woman made a mistake. Why? What did she see? Her friend was taking matzah flour. So again, fully cooked matzah, 100% kosher, and grinded into flour. Now, bottom line, v'hisa rashu kemach stam v'astake, and she thought it was regular flour from bread. So you have a little problem on your hands, because bottom line, if you start cooking with matzah flour and it looks too much like bread flour, you get confused. Say, oh, flour is flour. And I start using regular flour from bread, not flour from matzah. And therefore, you know what? You can't take your matzah and start cooking it with other things, because we don't want anyone to become confused. Like this poor woman, little did she know that this wonderful neighbor of hers was really cooking with matzah flour, and she thought it was bread flour. So she started cooking with bread flour. She made a big mistake, and therefore, you know what? It could get too confusing. It wouldn't look so right. And another reason behind the custom. Again, this is a very, very specific story in a specific, situation. But again, it's another sort of reason that's out there. Now comes along the Mishnah Berurah. So Mishnah Berurah says as follows: V'yesh anshe ma'isa shemachmirin al atzman. There are those who are great, strict people, anshe ma'isa, scholarly. Ve'in shorin ve'in mevashli matzah b'Pesach. They don't soak it. They don't cook matzah on Pesach. Mechashash shema nishar me'al kemach b'toch hamatzah mibifnim shelo nilush yafeh. So, as we saw in Rav Shmuel Zalman Levi, the chashash was that maybe, again, there's some little flowers, kernel of flour that didn't get cooked. And then you now start sticking it in water and liquids and become chametz. So again, halachically, midin, you don't have to be worried about such things. You don't assume that there's this 1% isser that came about. It's beyond our, as you said before, Gidon, you can drive yourself crazy with the endless possibilities of maybe chametz is going to fly through my window and come into my mouth. Let me put a tent around my house. Ad kan, halacha doesn't demand us to be Torah the malachi asharid. We got to be human beings. We got to be normal. Ubi prat, yaminu shagim lasot rikikim dakin, especially today. Now we have very thin matzahs. Again, you have a thick pizza like matzah. Okay, there might be a little dough in it. You have thin matzahs, it's fully cooked, especially if you have machine matzahs, right? That you know by precision on the machine that it's going to be cooked. You see someone doing the chumrah, right? You shouldn't make fun of him. He still has what to rely on. There's a source for the chumrah, but of course, it is not halachic, requirement.
The funny thing is, it sounds like this chumrah may have been born out of a different chumrah that brought along its own problem, which is that of being careful to, say, finish the entire matzah making process, as opposed to within 18 minutes, even though the 18 minutes really only has to start once you're done with the kneading. So it could arise from people trying to get it done so quickly that they don't knead it sufficiently.
Great point, right? If shmur matzah is, with the 18 minutes, you start your count earlier, you're more rushing. So here you have a chumrah that could come to allow could come to a mistake. And therefore, in response to the possibility that your earlier chumrah could have made a leftover flour, and now you're going to gebrocks, even afterwards, don't do anything with it. Excellent, I like it. Yofi, any other thoughts or comments? And then we'll go to the last 2-3 points.
Yeah. Even if, let's say I actually have a clump of flour in my matzah, right? And I have boiling hot soup. I dip it in the boiling hot soup. I didn't make chametz. It doesn't automatically become chametz that second. Does it? Or does it have to time? From the time that I put in my soup to the time that I put it in my mouth, which presumably isn't that long. I mean, if you really leave it and let it soak, you're talking something else. But it's unlike, it needs time. It doesn't just become chametz a second. It comes in contact with anything hot or anything like that. You have 18, the same way how before. There's a time for the baking, 18 minutes, etc.
Right.
So I just think even on top of that, unless you're talking about if you're leaving it, letting it soak in your soup.
Yeah, again, soak in the soup, but again, soup, now take matzah bride. Okay, now you're taking that matzah and you're cooking it on, with eggs on the stove. So again, those who keep gebrocks, it's not only soup. Don't get me wrong. I mean, that's just the beginning of it. Gebrocks don't you can't have matzah pizza. Can you imagine? Can you imagine Pesach without matzah pizza?
It's rough.
I mean, why? Because the sauce is a liquid, and you cook it together, and there's some flour left on it.
Well, not if you hold like the Rambam, because the Rambam says it can't be machmitz and klal.
If it's made peirot. Okay, excellent. Then you would need to, okay, good points. And then it would be only if you're putting the two sugyots together, and you would say again, it would only be, interesting. Out of it comes really 2 points. The first point was what the, Rosh Zalman of Leidi said, that if you start with mei peirot, you don't have to worry. Why? Because mei peirot is a chumrah in of itself, and therefore gebrocks with that, don't worry. But even if you're starting with matzah, then you're putting it with mei peirot, and mei peirot, even according to a number of opinions, right? Like you said, the Rambam imach mitzin, then even if you start with 100% matzah,
So kavachomer, no matter how gebrocks you want to hold. Yeah, like kavachomer, no matter how gebrocks you want to hold, you can technically always make a matzah pizza according to some Rishon.
Yeah. Good. Excellent. We're phew. You've saved our matzah pizza. So now let's say let's say in the past you kept gebrocks, you didn't know any better. Again, the way that it's put out there on Pesach programs, we're kosher and we're gebrocks. It's like a requirement. Everything's gebrocks these days. And by the way, it's easier now because you have potato flour and almond flour, so you can have your hamburger buns even in non-gebrocks places. But nevertheless, let's say, you wanted to this year, maybe it's because of the pandemic, maybe it's because, you learned through the sources and you don't want to do it anymore. Would you require hatarat nedarim in order to switch from being a non-gebrocks Pesach Jew to a gebrocks Pesach Jew? So Rav Yosef has a tshuva on it. Again, first, is there any foundation to this whole thing? And then, can you be mevatel it? So first he quotes interesting. He quotes the Chacham Tzvi. Shesatar kol nimuke machmir b'zeh. So the Chacham Tzvi, he didn't say fine if you want to be machmir, go be machmir. He contradicted. He fought against the chumrah. And a lot of other people, of course, were knowing to be mekel, the Chatam Sofer and different people. Of course, halacha is you don't have to do gebrachs. And therefore, again, davar pashut, someone who's got problems with their teeth, or zakein who doesn't have teeth, you can put your matzah in water, no problem, cold water, even on Leil HaSeder, and fulfill your mitzvah. Now, the bottom. If you thought gebrachs was actually a halacha, then you made a mistake because it's not the halacha. So if you didn't do gebrachs because you actually thought that's what's required of you, and now you want to do gebrachs, you're fine, because the whole reason you weren't doing gebrachs was a mekach taut. It was a mistake, and now that mistake is clarified. No problem. Tomorrow you start eating gebrachs. If you knew, listen, it's really okay. I'm just taking upon myself a chumrah. Then, if you want to get rid of the minhag, and therefore you should hatara nedarim in front of a beit. But so much so that if you actually thought the halacha was no gebrachs, then you're free in the clear, because again, it's not based on halacha. It's a chumrah mitzad of I want to be machmir of this. So now going all the way back full circle. So if you had to predict the answer to the question that was posed in the Kavna Ghetto, right? This fellow Moshe who risked his life to bring in flour to make matzah into the ghetto, and he did it little by little each time in order to be able to hide little matzahs on him and to bring into the ghetto. And he had enough for 100 people to eat matzah on Pesach night. And then 2 days before Pesach, he's caught trying to smuggle a little bit more, and he's beaten, and his teeth are knocked out. So he goes to Rav Oshri in the Kavna Ghetto and says, listen, I'm Chassidish, I'm gebrachs. Right? Rav Shul Zayman of Leidi was, wrote about this. So what can I do? Can I fulfill my mitzvah of matzah? So here's the response. It shouldn't be a surprise to us. The tradition of not soaking matzah is a stringency. Halacha does not forbid soaking matzah. I allowed the questioner to soak the matzah in water, even though he was a descendant from Chassidim whose custom was not to eat soaked matzah on Pesach, because he had no other way of fulfilling the mitzvah for which he had risked his life. I did, however, instruct him to obtain permission from a beit of 3 people, so he did not turn a daran to annul the vow. The implicit vow of tradition of his forebears, that he upheld all of his life not to eat matzah on Pesach. After he set up the beit, which annulled his vow, he proceeded to fulfill the mitzvah of eating an olive's baka, kezayit, a matzah, together with the others who thanked him, fulfilled his mitzvah. Although his whole body was aching and scarred from the vicious beating of the German animals that the German animals had inflicted upon him, there was no end to his joy and to his thanks to God for granting him the privilege of eating matzah despite his wounds and his broken teeth. And we shall be blessed that we get to matzah this year, with all the situation we find himself, to also feel the love that Moshe from the Kavno Ghetto felt as he was able to eat matzah, and find the joy in being able to fulfill this mitzvah. I wish all of you a Chag Kasher v'Sameach.